Hi, and welcome to Comcast Newsmakers. I'm Paul Lisnek. If you live in the city of Chicago, where we are, or anywhere around this country, all you do is pick up the newspaper to see the ongoing tragic instances of violence and gunfire that are just taking our major cities down in a bad way. Well, believe it or not, this is something that impacts a lot of the offices in our cities, and that includes the city treasurer. Let me introduce you to ours. Stephanie Neely is the City of Chicago City Treasurer, and it is good to see you.
It's good to see you. Thank you for having me.
So some people would say, but you know, as a treasurer, even for a major city, your job is to invest money. How is it that gun violence is impacting your work?
Well, first of all, I have a young son, and so I'm very concerned about all of our children's safety. The gun violence here in Chicago is outpacing Afghanistan. It's a tragedy, and it's very scary. In terms of investing, not only do I manage an $8 billion portfolio for the city of Chicago, I'm also on all the city's pension boards, and we invest. And so I want to make sure that my fiduciary responsibility of protecting assets as well as growing them also fits with being socially responsible.
When you take a look at the statistics, at the violence going on, and you and I have talked about this, so it's a fascinating perspective because you look at that and say, you know what, in terms of dollars, it's impacting so many areas.
Sure.
For starting healthcare, medical, because
Sure.
people are shot.
Sure.
And that triggers those kinds of things.
Sure. It's out of control. The human loss is grave, but the financial loss from healthcare, from police on the street, you can just, it's amazing. And it also just affects the happy factor of Chicago. And people don't want to come to Chicago, and they don't want to spend money, and they don't want to pay our sales tax, and that affects us, our bottom line. Chicago to be safe, not only from the human toll, but also from a financial standpoint.
Recently, the president put gun control certainly back on the front burner,
Absolutely.
calling for a lot of changes to happen. And you immediately sort of spoke out to that. And one of the things you said I found really interesting, which was, you know, if we didn't have to put all the money in these kinds of programs, cities, municipalities can use that money in other ways. And that's what we need to be able to do.
Infrastructure, education, healthcare, betterment of the city. And so there's a huge trade-off that gun violence has in this city and across our nation, and we have to put an end to it. And so I applaud the president as well as the vice president in really trying to take a stance on this. I mean, when you can't go to school and be safe, where can you be safe?
So can I ask you a tough question?
Ask.
You pick the company, or you're part of picking the companies that the city invests in. And so I imagine it is possible that some of those investments go into companies that perhaps manufacture guns or manufacture ammunition.
Sure.
So you have your feelings about that. In what ways should any treasurer, should any government official look and say, well, we're making money at that? Should your personal positions get in the way of your investment decisions?
Well, we can be socially responsible as well as being a fiduciary and a good steward of money. And so what we're doing here in Chicago is we're actually analyzing what kinds of companies we're investing in, because we don't want to investing in a gun manufacturer that supplies guns to our military, right? So you have to look at the trade-off. Is this for sport or is this for military? And that's the type of analysis we're doing here in Chicago. We're actually getting down on the stock level and seeing where these companies are actually investing.
If there's a company that is making money for the city, even though it might be one of those companies, do you say we don't pull out?
I do not believe we should pull out at a loss. I do not believe in divesting at a loss. I think that is actually opposed to my fiduciary responsibility of protecting and growing. I believe there's a way of saying we're not going to invest in the future. I believe there's a way of saying we'll divest when we have a profit, but I do not believe we should divest at a loss.
And it sounds to me like that this whole notion of trying to deal with the violence, it affects us at every level, at every office, in any kind of government entity.
If you're not safe, you don't feel your children are safe, you don't want your visitors to be safe, it does affect it. It affects our finances, it affects our health care, it affects, far gone time value of money that we could be using investing in other things. It's a huge toll that we're paying.
My guest, the treasurer for the city of Chicago, Stephanie Neely. Thanks for that perspective. I'm Paul Lisnek. Thanks for joining us here. This, of course, is Comcast Newsmakers. Bye-bye.